We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 57a. The Gemara continues with the discussion between Unkelus and the spirit of Titus. Unkelus asks Titus, "What is the punishment of those who do evil?" And Titus says, "B'mai de pasuk anafshi." The punishment is exactly that which he decreed upon himself. Kol yomim mechanshi le lekitmei. Every single day, his ashes are gathered. V'daini le, and he's judged. V'kalu le, and then he's burned again. Umavadru ashavyami, and he's spread out over the seven seas. That's exactly what Titus asked be done with his body, so he avoids punishment, and that's exactly what happened to him every day. And the Gemara continues, Azal aske levilim benegida. Then he brought up, through sorcery, he brought up the spirit of Bilam. Amar Lei said to Man Choshe Ba'alma, who's important in the world to come. Amar Lei said to Yisrael, the Jewish people. Ma'ulid Vuke Buhu, so he said, should I join them? Amar Lei said to him, Lo Sidro Shlomim V'Tovasam Kal Hayamim, you shouldn't seek out their peace and their good all of their days. You should not join them. Amar Lei said to him, Dine Dehu Gavra B'mai, what is the judgment against such an individual? Amar Lei said to him, B'Shichvas Zera Rosachas, his judgment is that he is cooked in boiling semen. And Rashi says, "B'shichvas zero sachas mida keneged mida." This is actually mida keneged mida. Shabbat saso hischilam liznos al benos Moav, because it was through the counsel of Bilam that the Jewish people sinned with the benos Moav, with the daughters of Moav, and that's why this is his judgment. And the Gemara continues, "Azal aske benegida leposhe Yisrael." Unkelus then used sorcery to bring up the spirit of the poshe Yisrael. And the Meseches Hashas has a different gears here. Besvar machem liyeshu. It's talking about Yeshu Hanotzri. It's talking about Yashka. And the Gemara says, Amar Lei said to him, Man Choshe Ba'alma, who is important in the next world? Amar Lei. So Yeshu said to him, Yisrael, it's the Jewish people. Ma'ulad Buke Buhu. So what about joining them? Amar Lei said to him, Tovasam Derosh Rasam Lo Sidrosh. He said, you should seek out their good. Don't do bad to them. Kala Nogea Ban, anyone who touches them, Kilo Nogea Bebav Aseno, it's like he's touching the pupil of his eye. Amar Leini said to him, Dine Dehu Gavra B'mai, what is the judgment against that individual? Meaning, what is your judgment? Amar Le B'tzor Rosachas. He said the judgment is the person is cooked in boiling excrement. The Amar Mar, as the master said, Kol Amalig Al Divrei Chachamim. Anybody who mocks the words of the Chachamim, Nidon B'tzor Rosachas, he is judged by being cooked in boiling excrement. And the Gemara says, Tachazi Ma'bein Poshe Yisrael L'Nevi'ei Umos Ha'olam. Look at the difference between the Poshe Yisrael and the Nevi'ei Umos Ha'olam. And the Gemara means to say that we see that the Poshe Yisrael, we see that Yeshu HaNotzri, he said to do good to the Jewish people, whereas the Nevi'ei Umos Ha'olam, meaning Bilam HaRasha, he said to do bad to the Jewish people. And the next two words of the Gemara, Ovdei Avodah Zarah, the Meseches Hashas says is taken out of many Gersos. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, we learned in a Bryce, so Amar Belazar says, Bo re'ei kama gedola kocha shalbusha. Come and see how great is the strength of one who has shame. Sharei siyah HaKadosh Baruch Hu es bar kamsa, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu assisted bar kamsa, v'hechrav es beis, so he destroyed his house, meaning the Beis HaMikdash, v'saraf es eichalo, and he burned his palace. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Atarnagola v'Atarnagolsa Chorov Tormalka, because of the rooster and the hen, Tormalka Haramelech, that was in Medina called Haramelech, was destroyed. Davenihigi, because there was a custom over there in Haramelech, Ki Ava Mifki Chasna v'Kalsa, Mifki Kamayu Tarnagola v'Tarnagolsa. When a Chassan and a Kala would come out, they would bring out before them a rooster and a hen. Kolomar, as if to say, Pru Uravu Katarnagolim, be fruitful and multiply like chickens. Yom Echad, one day, have a kacholef gunda de Romoi. There was a troop of Roman soldiers that were passing by. Shaklinu minayu, they took the chickens away from them. Naflu alayu mechunu, so the residents of the city, they fell upon them, and they attacked the Roman troops. Asu amru leila Caesar, so the troops, they came and they said to the Caesar, Mardu bach Yehudai, the Jews are rebelling against you. Asa alayu, so the Caesar sent troops against the Jews in Haramelech, and the Gemara continues, Have buhu ahu bar deroma, there was an individual among the residents of Haramelech whose name was bar deroma, to have a kopitz mila v'kotelbu, he could jump a meal and kill them. Shakle Caesar latage vios ve'ara, the Caesar took his crown and he put it on the ground. Amar, and he said, Ribone de al makula, he said, Master of the world, inicha loch lo timsre lo gavra l'dideu lo malchuse biyode dechad gavra. If it pleases you, don't give over this individual and his entire kingdom, meaning my entire kingdom, don't give it over to this one individual bar deroma. Actually, pumele bar deroma, so bar deroma stumbled over his words. V'yamar, and he said, Halo ato elokim zanachtonu v'lo seitze elokim b'tzivosenu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're not with us anymore, meaning to say, he was saying, we don't need you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara says, well, what's wrong with that? David Nami Amar Hachi. Didn't David say this as well? This is a pasuk from Tehillim. What is Bar Deroma saying that is wrong? And the Gemara explains, David atzmuei kamitama. David was wondering this. He was asking it as a question, whereas Bar Deroma was saying that we don't need HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues, Ola beis hakisei Bar Deroma, he went to the bathroom, asa derakona shamte lekarkashe v'nach nafshe, a snake came and disemboweled him, and he died. And the Gemara continues, Amar, the Caesar then said, Hoel v'israchesh li nisa, since a miracle happened to me, hazimnesh bekinu, this time I'll leave them alone. Shavkinu v'azal, he left them and he went on his way. Izdakor, so they leapt for joy, v'achlu v'shasu, and they ate and they drink. V'yadliku sharge, and they lit candles, adis chazi bilyona dugushpanka, brichok mila, until it was possible to see the imprint of a seal from a meal away. And the Gemara says, Amar, so the Caesar then said, Michta kachadu biyudoi, the Jews, they're like laughing at me. So Hadar asa alayu, so then he did come upon them, he attacked them. And the Gemara says, Amar Ravasi says, Tlos meya alfe shlife saifa ailu lator malka. There were 300,000 swordsmen that went up against Haramelech, v'katlu bat tlasa yomu tlasa l'lvasa, and they killed for 3 days and 3 nights. Uvahach Gitin, on the other side of the mountain, hilule v'chinke, they were celebrating, v'lo havayadi hani bahani, and these ones didn't know what was going on with those. And the Gemara continues quoting a pasuk in Eicha, Bilo Hashem v'lo chamal, Hashem is swallowed up without pity, as called in Os Yaakov, all the habitations of Yaakov. Ki asa Rav and Amar Rabbi Yochanan, when Ravin came, he said that Rabbi Yochanan said, Elu shishim ribu ayaros, this refers to the 600,000 villages, Shahayu lo liyaneh hamelech bahar hamelech, which Yaneh hamelech had in Har hamelech. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Ravasi, because Rav Yehuda said that Ravasi said, Shishim ribu ayaros hayu lo liyaneh hamelech bahar hamelech. Yaneh hamelech had 600,000 villages in Har hamelech. V'chol achas v'achas hayu bo ki yotzei Mitzrayim, and every single one had a population like the amount of people that left Mitzrayim, chutz mishalosh, except for 3 of them, shahayu ben kiflayim ki yotzei Mitzrayim, that it had actually double the amount, double the population of those that left Mitzrayim. Elohein, and they are as follows: Kfar Bish, Kfar Shechlayim, Kfar Dichraya. Those are the names of the 3 cities. Kfar Bish, why was it called Kfar Bish? Delo Yahavi Beisa Lushbiza, because they would not host guests in that town. Kfar Shechlayim, why is it called Kfar Shechlayim? Shaisa Parnasasan min Shechlayim, because they made their money from cress. And Kfar Dichraya, why was it called Kfar Dichraya? Amr Rabbi Yochanan says, Shayu in the Shosein Yoldos is Zacharim Tchila, because their wives would first give birth to males. Dicharaya, like from the word Zachar, Violdos Nekeva, Bachron, and then they would give birth to females after, Uposkos, and then they would stop giving birth. Amar Ula says, Ledidi Chazi Liyahu Asra, I saw that area, Vafilu Shisin Rubivasa, Kanilo Machzik. It wouldn't even be able to hold 600,000 reeds, let alone population of 600,000. And the Gemara continues, Amar Leahu Tziduki Rabbi Chanina, Tziduki said to Rabbi Chanina, Shakuri Meshakrisu, you are liars, meaning to say, you exaggerate, it can't possibly be there are so many people in this area when it's such a small area. Amar Le said to him, Eretz Tzvi Ksiv ba Eretz Yisrael is referred to as Eretz Tzvi, Ma Tzvi Ze'ein Oro Machzik as Pesor, just like a tzvi, just like a deer, its hide is not able to contain its flesh. It means to say when you take off its skin, it shrinks, it doesn't seem like it can actually contain it. Af Eretz Yisrael, the same thing is true with Eretz Yisrael. Bizman sheyoshven oleh revacha, uvizman she'ein yoshven oleh gamda. When people are settled on it, when there are people there, it widens, it has space for everybody, but when there's no one there, it seems to shrink, and that's why it seems like this area cannot possibly hold that amount of individuals. And the Gemara continues, Rav Menyume bar Chilkiya, Rav Chilkiya bar Tuvia, Rav Huna bar Chia, have a Yasri Gabi Hadadi. Rav Menyume bar Chilkiya and Rav Chilkiya bar Tuvia and Rav Huna bar Chia were sitting by each other. Amri, they said, if anybody heard anything about the village or the city of Sechania of Mitzrayim, Lema, say what we heard about such a town. Pasachad Minayu, so one of them began and said, V'yamar, and he said, Maisa ba'oras varusasa, there was an incident with a man and woman who were betrothed, Shenishbu levein ha'ovdei kochavim v'hisiyum zelazeh, they were captured by the idol worshippers and they married them to one another. Amra lo, so she said to him, meaning to say that the woman who was betrothed said to her husband, Tigabi, please don't touch me, because I don't have a ksuba yet from you. So he didn't touch her until the day of his death. And when he died, Amra lehen, she said to them, Siftu lazeh, shepitbeit biyitzro yoser miyosef. You should give a good eulogy to this individual. He was able to treat his Yetzer Hara like it was like nothing, even more than Yosef HaTzadik. The ilu biyosef lo have l'chadashayta, because when it came to Yosef, it was only for one moment, meaning that one moment where he was with the Eshes Potiphar. V'hai kol yoma v'yoma, and this, my husband, every single day he had to refrain, he had to restrain himself. V'ilu Yosef la b'chadamita, v'hai b'chadamita, and whereas by Yosef they weren't in one bed, here was a situation where we were in one bed. Ve'ilu Yosef lav ishto, and by Yosef it wasn't his wife. Va'ishto, and here it's a situation with his wife. Pasach idach v'amar. Then the other one, he began and said as follows: Ma'isa, there was an incident in this town. Va'amdu arboim mudios b'dinar. There was 40 saw. You could buy 40 saw with 1 dinar. Nechsar hashar mudya achas. But then it came out that you were only able to buy 1 less saw. The prices seemed to go up. Something seemed to have happened. Uvodku matzu avu beno shabo al nara morasa b'yom kippurim. And so they inspected. They said it must be that this happened because of some kind of sin. And they found a father and son that they had relations with a nara hamorasa, betrothed young woman, on Yom Kippur. Ve'aviyum lebezin uskolim, and they brought them to Bezin. They gave them skila. Ve'chazar asharlam komo, and the prices returned to their proper amount. Pasach idach v'amar. Then the other one, he began and said as follows: Ma'isa b'adam echad. There was an incident with a certain person in this town. Shanasan einav b'ishto lagarsha, that he wanted to divorce his wife. V'haisak ksubasa meruba. She had a large ksuba. Me'asa. So what did he do? Halach v'zimin es shoshvinav. He went. He invited his friends. Ve'achilon v'hishkon shichron v'shkivan al mita achas. And he gave them food. He gave them to drink. They became drunk. He put them all on one bed. Ve'hevi loven beitza v'hitel b'neim. Then he took the white of an egg and he put it among them. He was trying to falsely prove that his wife had committed adultery. V'hemid lohen edim, and then he had witnesses there. Ubal lebezdin, and he came to Bezdin. Hayasham zaken echad mitalmidei Shammai hazaken. There was one elderly student from Shammai hazaken who was there. Ubaba ben Buta Shimon. His name was Baba ben Buta. Amar Len, he said to them, Kach mukablani mi Shammai hazaken. I have a tradition from Shammai hazaken as follows: Loven beitza solid min haor. If you have the white of an egg and there's a flame by it, there's a fire by it, it hardens. B'shechvaz zera dochem min haor. But when it comes to shechvaz zera, that's absorbed by the heat. Badku mitzau kidvarav. So they did this test and they found, like he was saying, they found it was just the white of an egg. This whole entire thing was a setup. Ve'viula bezin, so they brought the husband to Bezin. Vilku, they gave him lashes. V'yigbua ksubasa miman, when they collected her ksuba from him. And the point over here is that all of the incidents that happened in this town, all of them seem to indicate that the town was a righteous town. So Amar le Abai le Rav Yosef, so Abai said to Rav Yosef, if the people of this town are so righteous, my time meyanish, why were they punished? Again, we see that these areas were all wiped out. Amar le said to him, Mishim delo ya'abul al Yerushalayim. The reason is because they didn't mourn over Yerushalayim. T'chsiv, as it's written, Simchu es Yerushalayim v'gilu ba kalo haveh sisu ita mesos. Kal ha-mesablam aleh means those are the people who will rejoice with Yerushalayim are those who mourn for Yerushalayim properly, and they did not do so, and that's why they were punished. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots, Ashaka derispak chorev Beitar, because of the shaft of a carriage, Beitar was destroyed. And the Gemara says the story, because the custom in Beitar was, when a boy would be born, they would plant a cedar tree, and Yenukta Shasli Tornisa, when a girl would be born, they would plant a cypress tree, and when these two would get married later on, Kaitzulu, they would cut down those particular trees, Va'avdu Genona, and they would use those trees to make the canopy for the wedding. Yom Echad, one day, have a kacholfa brate de Caesar, the daughter of the Caesar was passing by the area, Itvar Shaka derispak, and the shaft of her carriage broke. Katsu Arza, so they cut down the cedar tree, and this was one of the cedar trees that was designated for a particular boy who was born. Va'ilula, and they used that to fix the carriage. Asu nafal alayu, so the people of Beitar got upset about this because this was a disruption of their custom, which they held in great esteem, and so they attacked them, Mechono, and they beat them. Asu amru le Caesar mordu bach yodoi. So then they came and they told the Caesar, the Jews are rebelling against you. Asu alayu, and that's why they came upon them. That's why they were attacked after that incident. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The pasuk says, "Goda bechoriaf kol keren Yisrael." He cut off with great anger all of the horns of Israel. Amar Rabbi Zeir, Amar Rabbi Avo. Rabbi Zeir says that Rabbi Avo says. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yochanan says, "Elu shmonim elef karnei milchama shenichnasu lekrach Beitar." What this pasuk is referring to is the 80,000 soldiers. They were carrying trumpets of war, and they were entering into the city of Beitar b'shashal l'chadua at the time that they were capturing it. V'harguba nashim v'nashim b'taf, and they killed in Beitar men, women, and children. Ad shaholach daman v'nafal Yam HaGadol. There was so much blood that it went and it fell into the Yam HaGadol, into the Great Sea. Shema Tomer Krova Haisa. Now you might think that the city of Beitar was close to the Yam HaGadol. Rechoka Haisa Mil. It was a meal away from the Yam HaGadol, and still the blood all went into the Yam HaGadol. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol Omer, we learned in a Brayso, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol says, Shnei Necholim Yesh Bebikas Yadayim, there are 2 streams in Bikas Yadayim, in the valley of Yadayim, Echad Moshech Elech, Ve'echad Moshech Elech, one goes in one direction, the other goes in the other direction. V'shiro Chacham, and the Chachamim measured how much blood was in these rivers because of this attack on Beitar, Shnei Chalok Mayim Ve'echad Dam. For every 2 portions of water, there was 1 portion of blood. B'masnisa Ton, in a Brayso was taught, Sheva Shonim Batzrov Dekochav Mes Karmein Midomen Shal Yisrael. Yisrael below Zevel. For 7 years, the idol worshippers were able to harvest their vineyards from the blood of the Jews, and they did not need any fertilizer. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Zayin Amid Beis.